In my last 3 videos about symbols, we covered symbols that had very occult, satanic backgrounds to them. We see that the world we live in today is surrounded by influences of the occult. I covered those symbols first because they were symbols that many of us use today unknowingly. Many of those hand gestures we use without thinking, and many of the symbols we recognize but tie a different meaning to them entirely. The danger is using and accepting things that promote Satan and his values. The more we analyze and review this world and the symbols surrounding us, the more we can see how heavily the masses, including many of us, are influenced by things we don't know the history about. The fact that many people either don't know or they choose to ignore or downplay is that the world is run by Satanists. One way I long ago realized how true the Bible was when I researched heavily into those with power. I saw how dedicated many of them were to worshiping Satan and to bring about his full worship on earth. For centuries, much of these symbols and occult gestures were hidden from the public eye, but we are now at a point in time where they are massively bold in presenting themselves. It should be highly alarming to the believer in Messiah. The more these symbols are accepted by the general public, the closer we are to their New World Order. Understand, the goal of the New World Order is for Satan to be worshipped by the world as God. So in order for this to happen, his morals, values, and principles need to be generally accepted. If one is paying attention to the overall views of society at large, we can see that we definitely are at a point where Satan's values are accepted, though the majority does not recognize it as such. The more we see these symbols, though, the closer we should recognize we are to Satan's overall goal. For instance, the symbol I presented in part 2 of this symbolism series, the 666 sign, I explained how the symbol represented 666 and the coming of Lucifer. A few weeks later, there is a new trend, or I believe they call it a challenge. The Delali challenge, to be exact, or maybe I have the name wrong. This is where the masses are throwing up this sign and place it over their eye, combining the 666 sign with the all-seeing eye. 2 highly occult symbols placed into one. This was normally used by celebrities who sold out to the satanic agenda and used this as a form of showing their allegiance. But now the masses are doing this sign and don't know what it means. It's obvious that the masses don't know that they are representing Satan. I'm sure a lot of them just tie it in with Illuminati, and they think it's a cool thing because all their favorite celebrities do it. What they don't understand is that what they are doing is contributing to a massive amount of wicked satanic energy that is being transmitted all over the world. It is communicating to spiritual forces of wickedness the world is ready for their false messiah to be presented. It really shows us just how close we are. There's a reason the masses weren't doing these symbols half a century ago and before. Today, the world is just way more wicked, and the general public is literally blinded to this fact. If you or anyone else you know is throwing up this sign, please stop doing it and inform whoever it is about what they're doing. Show them part 2 of this series and allow them to review the information. Parents, please have a conversation with your child and make sure they aren't doing it, and even taking a step further, make sure they're not hanging with other kids that are doing it as well, and they aren't liking pics of their friends or anyone else doing it on social media. You don't want anyone you know contributing to this wicked satanic energy. This was the reason I started this series, but the symbols go deeper than what we've gone over. A huge way of gaining discernment is understanding the devices of Satan. When you have knowledge, and then you see certain things, it clicks in your mind that, oh, this is evil, and you are no longer contributing to the wickedness being transmitted. The reason for this part is that there's one symbol that is being presented everywhere, and though many of you know for sure that is wicked and satanic, because it obviously looks this way, there are many things and underlying beliefs surrounding this symbol that need to be understood, so that your discernment can grow further. So we need to dig into this. Let's begin. The Baphomet. This is the Baphomet. When I was first awakened, I would see this symbol often, and it used to frighten me at first. It is a hideous symbol, so I won't be showing it as much unless I need to explain something. The word Baphomet is shown to go back as far as the late 11th or 12th century. It was associated with the Knights Templar. This is a very important group that you won't learn about much in schools, and what they do teach about them is deception. They are presented as Christian knights who fought for the Vatican, but they were deeply satanic. They were known to worship the Baphomet, but it was not like what we see today. They simply worshipped a horned goat head. They had a massive amount of power, until they were hypocritically branded by the Pope at that time as devil worshippers. One of their accusations was that they worshipped the Baphomet. The majority of them were captured and killed in October in the year of 1307. This happened on Friday, the 13th. But they were the first ones allegedly to worship this figure. It did not pop up again until the mid-19th century. French magician Eliphas Levi, a 19th century Satanist whose works inspired the writings of Albert Pike, the sovereign grand commander of international Freemasonry, he reimagined the Baphomet into a figure he named the Sabbatic Goat for his book Dogmas and Rituals of High Magic. And this is what you see today as the Baphomet. In 1966, Anton LaVey adopted the Baphomet as the sigil of the Church of Satan. Because there are so many hidden meanings in this symbol, and it's such a hideous thing to look at, we often don't recognize what exactly encompasses this symbol and what exactly it's transmitting. So let's take a look. The horns. If you go down the line of pagan, esoteric, and satanic imagery, Lucifer and the many names and personas he has taken over the millennia has long been portrayed as a horn god. It's really not that deep. When you see images of people wearing horns, they are portraying Lucifer. That's why the I love you hand sign shown in part 1 is also known as the horned hand. Look at the rapper Eminem holding the sign up to his head. He is representing the Baphomet. Or more directly, he is referencing Lucifer. Going back to the worship of Baal and Moloch, all different names of Satan, he is portrayed with horns. Then there is the Greek god Pan. They all have horns. What I want you to understand is anytime you see someone wearing horns, they are symbolizing Lucifer. Do you remember in the first Avengers movie that Loki, the main villain, was wearing horns on his head? Or what about Beyonce at Coachella when she was wearing horns? These are satanic references that you may not realize. This is the occult put into your face. Now that you know, you will recognize it every time you see it. The horn god is Lucifer. The goat. Remember, the Baphomet symbol is also known as the Sabbatic goat and the goat of Mendes. Occultists use the goat to represent Luciferic worship as well. In his book, Secret Teachings of All Ages, occultist and Satanist Manly Hall declares that the goat is both a phallic symbol and also an emblem of courage or aspiration because of its sure-footedness and ability to scale the loftiest peaks. To the alchemists, the goat's head was the symbol of sulfur. The Dictionary of Mysticism, in reference to the Baphomet, admits that, in occultism, the Baphomet, the Sabbatic goat in whose form Satan was said to be worshipped at the witches' Sabbath. If we go back to part 3 of this symbol series, where we discussed the pentagram, the upside-down pentagram is also used to contain the goat head of the Baphomet. Henry Stilson and William J. Hewen write in their book, History of Freemasonry and Concordant Orders, when turned with one point down, it represents evil, all that is opposed to be the good, pure, and virtuous. In fine, it represents the goat of Mendes. You can also notice that on the goat's head, in the Baphomet symbol, you'll see a pentagram. The goat symbol is used often, and is used to depict and represent the occult. Look at this picture from a Rothschild costume party in the late 1970s, or more recently, during the 2016 election, where we found Marina Abramovic was inviting Hillary Clinton's entourage to a dinner for spirit cooking. These are images of Marina Abramovic with a goat head. Satanic. We are constantly shown the goat in some way for occult purposes, but if you don't recognize that they are referencing Satan, you can seriously be deceived. Think about our children, or many of us who watch sports and use the name the GOAT for the best players. This is not a coincidence that this acronym that stands for the greatest of all time is used. People say this often, and I hear kids often try to refer to themselves as the GOAT, not realizing they are calling themselves Satan. This is the occult in our face that we just take as harmless because we just assume a goat is a goat. But the goat is a heavily used animal in witchcraft and the occult. Keep this in your awareness. Hermaphrodite. The Baphomet is also a form of androgyny. Androgyny is the combination of masculine and feminine characteristics. Androgyny usually is used to describe characters or people who have no specific gender, but it also shows gender ambiguity. It confuses gender identity, sexual identity, or sexual lifestyle. This understanding goes very deep. I will cover it surface level. Levi's drawing of the Baphomet is androgynous. Satan, like the Baphomet, is often portrayed as a hermaphroditic deity, having both a male phallus and the breast of a woman. The winged staff between the Baphomet represents the phallus. This understanding can go back to part 1 of my History of Religion series, in which we see that the pagans had both male and female gods. The father god and mother goddess are Lucifer. This is why he is androgynous. This is why there is such a push today to blend the lines between man and woman. It is a form of Satanism. When a man takes on qualities of a woman, and vice versa, it is actually a representation of satanic principles. It's satanic values being illustrated without it being verbally described as such. This is why so many rappers today are wearing female clothing and accessories. Look at this post from Instagram with a man wearing this purse and admits he is doing this because of some rapper.
It's not a purse, stupid.
Stupid.
All the rappers is doing it. They look stupid.
Yeah.
Baby Rock looks stupid.
Yup.
Meek
Yup.
Mill looks stupid. You're
Yup.
wrong.
When I speak with the youth of today, many of them can't even recognize the feminine nature of their clothing. Things that men of the past would never have tolerated are now so blurred that the characteristics between man and woman are very unidentifiable to them. This is satanic. They are accepting satanic principles. Or what about the new gender identity laws in Canada?
I'm proud to announce that tomorrow, on the International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia, we will be tabling a bill in the House of Commons to ensure the full protection of transgender people.
Called Bill C-16, where a person can be prosecuted for a hate crime if they refer to a person under the wrong gender pronoun. So if a man decided he's a woman, but you do not reference him as a she, this can be considered a hate crime.
4 times I have told you not to call me sir.
Or in the state of Vermont and in Washington, a person could declare their gender as gender X.
Boy, it's a girl, or it's X. Washington State considering a third gender option on birth certificates. Right now, state officials looking for public comments on the proposal. If it's approved, parents can skip labeling their newborn child as a male or a female starting next year.
Embracing non-gender binary options. Or just transgenderism as a whole. This is the world we are seeing, and while many people have their opinions on whether it is right or wrong, most will recognize that it is just a personification of satanic values as clearly represented through the Baphomet. So every time you are seeing this personified, you are seeing the representation of the Baphomet in real life. Clearly, the end times are upon us. As above, so below. This is the last piece of symbolism that I'll reference in regard to the Baphomet. Maybe you have heard this phrase, but never really known what it means. It's a short phrase used to represent a complex topic. If you research this phrase, it means many different things to many different people, but it is always used in the form of the occult. The phrase is, as above, so below. This is depicted in the Baphomet as it uses the right hand to point up, while it uses the left hand to point down. As above, so below. It comes from the emerald tablet of Hermes Trismegistus, forgive my pronunciation. And the full phrase is, that which is below corresponds to that which is above, and that which is above corresponds to that which is below, to accomplish the miracle of the one thing. This phrase has many layers, but again is always used within the circle of occult, witchcraft, and Satanism. Look at the tarot card for the magician. He is doing the same signal. Broken down to a very simple level, this goes back to Lucifer's goal in Isaiah chapter 14. It's describing the miracle of the one thing as described in the emerald tablet. Isaiah chapter 14 verses 13 and 14 say, "For you have said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of hell. I will also sit on the mount of the congregation, on the farthest sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High." This is spoken about more in depth in part 5 of my History of Religion series. This is accomplishing the miracle of the one thing. This is Satan's goal, and that is one representation of the goal, which is why we see Satan using it. It's the overall goal. He is the god of this world, like 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4 explains. And his goal is to ascend to the heavens the same way, and he will also make earth like heaven. This is a form of duality that needs to be understood. Have you seen the new Progressive commercial, where that progressive guy has that little choir singing that song, Heaven is a Place on Earth? When you see this commercial, make sure you mute it, because there is something about it that will sit in your head for hours at a time, repeating the same thing over and over. But the point is that this commercial is a representation of this phrase.
We'll make heaven a place on earth.
My angels!
Ooh, heaven is a place on earth.
That's why they're singing, Heaven is a Place on Earth. There is a new series on cable television called Lodge 49, where they show the main character being initiated into a secret society that pretends to be harmless. Anyway, the title of the first episode is As Above, So Below. No coincidence. This symbol goes all the way back to the Sumerians. This idol is using the same gesture. Look at P. Diddy. These people do these things right in plain sight. Or Jason Alexander, who played the lovable loser George Costanza on the show Seinfeld. He posed for TV Guide magazine in a blatantly Kabbalistic body pose. Plus, his left and right hands gave the El Diablo horned devil sign in an as above, so below gesture. Evil. Or Quentin Tarantino and Tyra Banks. Evil. This is a representation of Lucifer's goal of being like the Most High and bringing his heaven on earth, where he will be worshipped. It's quite evil. But look how deep it goes. You remember the song and dance from Silento called the Nene? They literally had every kid, it seemed like, in America doing this dance. But look at it. A part of the move is the same exact gesture as the as above, so below gesture the Baphomet is holding. This is why you must be careful on accepting the things of this world. People were unknowingly representing a satanic principle. They did this everywhere, and celebrities were able to represent their allegiance to the agenda in plain sight because the masses just thought they were being hip. This is all because the world was promoting Satanism and its values. This is how dangerous these symbols can be. Look, they were even doing this in church. If your church entertained this garbage, you need to run away. We may want to justify it as ignorance, but this is why James chapter 4 verse 4 says, adulterers and adulteresses, do you not know that the friendship with the world is enmity with Elohim? Whoever therefore wants to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of Elohim. This world is wicked, and because we desire to be a friend of the world's culture, to fit in, as the culture moves in a direction that is intended to worship and promote Satan, you will be deceived and do things against the one you say you love and worship. If we applied these scriptures, we would not be deceived. And if more churches spoke to this, less of us would be deceived. Understand the reason why things like this go viral, just like this Delali challenge, throwing up the 666 sign over the one eye, is because the powers that be want us to promote Satanism, and the more we do it, the more we build a tolerance for Satan. Lastly, let me show you one more example. If you read the Message Bible, or know anyone else who reads the Message Bible, it should be stopped immediately. It literally does exactly what the scriptures say not to do, which is to add or remove from it. But let's go to the Lord's Prayer in Matthew chapter 6, verses 9 and 10 in the Message Bible. It says, with a God like this loving you, you can pray very simply. Like this, Our Father in heaven, reveal who you are. Set the world right. Do what's best. As above, so below. I mean, that translation is just really ridiculous. It's really crazy, and the less we know about these things, the more we are deceived, which is why I'm making this episode. So we have examined what the Baphomet is. Like I started off with, it's obvious just by looking at the symbol that is pure evil. But when we analyze all the things that are incorporated in this symbol, we can clearly see just how fallen our world is and how much we have accepted wickedness. This used to be a symbol used in secret societies like the Templars, not for mass consumption. But now we are seeing the Satanic Temple erecting the statue everywhere. They recently held a rally to petition themselves to be able to erect this Baphomet statue at the Arkansas State Capitol. They weren't actually able to erect the statue, but they had a rally to gain support, something you would not have seen 10 or 20 years ago. The state had just passed a bill to erect a 10 Commandments monument in Little Rock. And a common legal tactic for religious equality activists, the Satanic Temple sought to install Baphomet alongside the 10 Commandments. They tried the same thing in Oklahoma too. This is what the Satanists had to say.
Of Arkansas and supporters of religious liberty, I present to you Baphomet, a symbol of pluralism, legal equality, tolerance, free inquiry, freedom of conscience, and reconciliation.
He said, I present to you Baphomet, symbol of pluralism, legal equality, tolerance, free inquiry, freedom of conscience, and reconciliation. And this is exactly what the symbol represents. He's not lying. All of the things I mentioned in this video represent this, and we have not even gotten to the dualism yet. It's hard to understand how many see this actually happening before their eyes and do not recognize that we are in the end times. The worship of Satan is not something done in secret any longer, but they are proud and bold, and there's not much opposition to them. We are clearly in the end times, and you must decide on whom you serve. Maybe you believe that ignoring it is a good strategy, but you are wrong. Your ignorance and inaction are a representation of your tolerance of wickedness. Serve Yahweh. Believe in Yahshua the Messiah. You don't have much more time left. If you go through the symbols from part 1 all the way to this part, it is undeniable how much satanic culture is on our current society. I hope this creates a sense of urgency in you to have more discernment and believe fully in Yahshua. If you want to understand more about him, please watch my History of Religion series. Read the word of Elohim and pray. Okay, so thanks for watching this episode. If this has blessed you, please like it and share it with others. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you haven't done so already, please make sure you subscribe to this channel. My goal is to spread the good news of Yahshua and spread knowledge so that we are not taken advantage of by the devil. My desire is to prepare the church for Yahshua as I feel I have been called to do in these last days. Don't forget to follow this ministry on Facebook and Instagram. And thanks again to all that support this ministry. You know who you are. I'm very grateful for you. Thanks everyone for watching. I love you all.